Hi, everyone. This is Catching Up with the Nerds with your hosts, Tom and JC. This is a podcast about two dads that are catching up on all the nerdy stuff we missed, sharing how we pass on our nerdy passions to our kids, and deep diving into nerdy pop culture to make it more accessible for you, our listener. How's it going, Tom?
I'm all right. How you doing?
Yeah, doing good, man. Like, glad to be recording again after a couple of weeks off.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, it's been too long. It's been too long. But we're here now.
Yeah. So should we do quick introductions of each other, just for everybody that's new to the podcast?
Oh, what again? Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
Do you want to start?
Man, you never know who's tuning in today.
I started last week or last episode. I feel like you should go this time around.
Yeah, let's have a go, man. So my name is JC Garay. I'm originally from Honduras, but now I'm living in Portland. Before this, I lived in London. That's where I met Tom. Before that, it was the States. And before that is where I was born, Honduras. I am a dad of an 11-year-old named Aiden and a lovely little girl that's 5 years old named Arabelle, and wife to one amazing woman called Fiorella. And
She's listening, isn't she?
I love all things graphic novels. Totally. I want breakfast after this, dude. I love me my graphic novels. Love my kind of nerdy horror, nerdy sci-fi and fantasy, and I dabble in video games now and then. So over to you, Tom.
Hi, my name is Tom Arnal. I'm the other half of the podcast. I'm originally from France, as you can hear from the accent. Moved to the UK to London 20 years ago, which is where I met JC. Also a dad to two kids, one who's lovely, Emily, 11, and a boy who is getting there slowly. He's about to be 4 years old, Louis. Quite a handful, but he's
one day, buddy.
One day he'll listen to this. He'll be like, "Oh, that wasn't that bad." Yeah, yes, you were. Married to a lovely Spanish lady, Elizabeth, who is from the Canary Islands. You know, shout out to the Canary Islands.
Yeah, love that place.
Oh yes, those holidays. I'm very much into video games, anything that has to do with Sony, Sega, Microsoft, even if you want to, and Nintendo. I also love me some good nerdy books, anything that has to do with, especially comics, a bit of manga as well, some Dragon Ball now and then. And I think that's about it, And I still like sports. If you heard the episode 2 on PlayStation, we mentioned we like sports. I still like sports.
Yes, we're inclusive. Whether you like sports or not, we're here for you, baby. There you go.
All right. So we've spent the last episode bashing Fortnite and a bunch of games that we thought are maybe not recommended for a younger audience and maybe to our kids. Yeah. So that's what we're going to be doing today. We are going to recommend a bunch of games that we liked. Yeah. And today's episode is specifically focused on the PlayStation, right? The next couple will be on the Xbox, and the following after that will be on the Nintendo Switch. So today, exclusively, I cannot say that word, specifically on the PlayStation, and it's a lovely bunch of games that I think some of them are exclusive to the PlayStation, JC. I believe going down the list that we've got, there might be I don't even know if there's something that came out on the Xbox. I think they're all pretty much exclusive to the world of Sony.
Nice, because it shows the love for the PlayStation. And just one more disclaimer ahead of this is that as we give you recommendations, you as a parent define what is the level of whether it be violence or content in a video game that you're comfortable with for your kid. This is just what we feel we're comfortable for our kids, but your tolerance may be totally different. So please always check video games on Common Sense Media or any other sites that review them, so you figure out what's actually the video games your kids are playing. Cannot stress that enough. We both do that for our kids and make sure that we almost chew it up a little bit before regurgitate and vomit it into their mouth, sort of thing. So
that's a lovely image.
That's a lovely bird analogy of what you should do for your kids.
Right then. All right. So what we've sort of done quickly, just to reframe it, is we picked a bunch of games. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 on my list, and I think JC's got about the same number, 3 or 4. These are games that we have played and enjoyed, and we've enjoyed enough to recommend it to everyone. Um,
Yeah.
so I think I should go ahead. Shall I go first with my first pick of the 2020 lockdown season? Um, so I think I'm gonna go with Firewatch. I think, and I've just looked it up. Firewatch is not exclusive to the PlayStation, right? It's not. It's actually on the Xbox and Switch. But I've obviously played it on PS4 because that's my main gaming rig, as we should say.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
right. So, Firewatch. Let me tell you what it is. If I'm not sure you've played it yourself, right? Am I correct?
I haven't played, but I saw the cover on it. Dude, looks like it's really nicely designed, like really awesome art.
It's graphically amazing, simple yet very well done. So Firewatch, it's a story that's set back, I think, at the end of the 80s, I think in 1989 or 88, and you are controlling a man named Henry, who's retreated from his sort of, his life that we don't really know much about, apart from the fact that something really bad happened in his love life. And he's retreating to this job who he's, well, in Wyoming, I think, something like that, in the forest in Wyoming, or this park. How do you guys call it in the US? This massive parks, the forest,
Oh,
or the natural
National Park.
national parks. That's the word.
National Park. Yeah.
In Wyoming, and he's taking the job as a fire lookout there. So there's a bunch of stuff that happens, and you get to delve into his backstory a little bit as he's trying to do the job of fire watching, which is great. So, the game came out in, I believe, 2016, which is the year. No, I was going to say the year was my son was born, but I think my boy was born in 2017. But I got the game in 2017, so I got to play that with him being a newborn baby. And having him sleeping on my lap, because it's a very chilled, slow-paced game for most parts. So you can play with your headphones on whilst you're having a newborn sleeping on your on top of you, so it's all good. There's not going to be that many rough and crazy controls where you have to throw your controller up in the air and shout and do a bunch of rash movements. So it's pretty chilled in its pace. It's pretty slow. So my history with this is that, like, I was going through those nights where you don't sleep that much, and I was like, I'm not going to watch TV whilst he's asleep there. I could try and sleep, but it's not really comfortable on the sofa with the baby there. So I would play Firewatch to get me through those nights. I would recommend that game. It's great. There might be a few themes if you're letting your kids play that game that you might not be comfortable with. It's like the maybe death is something you're not really cool with, but it's dealt with in that game in a good way. That is not it's not trash. Let's put it that way. It's not something like it's not sensationalizing death. It's being talked about. Somebody, a loved one from your family is gone, and this is how you deal with it. I'm not going to spoil the entire story. I'm not going to go into the details of it, but the setting of it it's pretty cool. It's not something that was done before. I think the publisher of the game, or the developer of the game, is Campo Santo. I think that's the name. And there's one of those studios that release a game every 25 million years, but every time they do, it's a great one. So my first pick, Firewatch.
So that's I think is an awesome example, especially as you talk about the part about death, right? Because one of the things that people hold up for, whether it be Fortnite or even like the Minecraft Battle Royale modes, or like other games like that a lot of times, like the actual violence is so cartoonish that it doesn't have really an impact. And we talked about this last time about how is a shooter game going to inspire kids to go up and like do something violent or whatnot. And most of the research right now says no, that's not actually what pushes kids to get into that sort of mindset. And that's a whole different topic, right? But what I like about it is, like you mentioned, this game still has death, and it's the death is given weight, right? It means
Absolutely.
something, it matters something in the game. And that's where I'm like, that actually I think is kind of a good association for kids, right? Because then they're learning about something that is a natural part of life, but at the same time not making it just out as, oh, and just shoot them all up, but because they don't look dead, it's okay to shoot everybody, right?
Yeah.
And we've all played those games, and they're fun to do, but you have to counter that, something to balance it. It's like, yeah, to turn out, like, you can't have Nutella all the time, right? It's like you gotta have something else on your crepes to like flavor. Occasionally have a savory one, because then the Nutella one tastes that much better, right? And that's the point. It's like this game. Yeah, exactly. It's like it just feels like this type of, just looking from it visually, it will hit up different dopamine receptors based on what happened, right? It's like whether it be like the visual, it's not the same receptors they're getting from Fortnite.
So it's funny you mentioned the visuals, because the visuals are they're very cartoonish in general throughout the games. It's very grotesque in the way the characters are looking like. They have big hands, massive heads, square heads. Not saying it's Roblox or Minecraft, but they look very cool. I love the way the whole design has been done, and the voice acting also is great. I mean, not only from the main character, but from everyone else involved in the story. But in particular from the guy who's playing, what's his name, Henry, was Harry Crane, the guy who's voicing acting as Harry Crane in Mad Men.
Yeah.
I think his name is Rich.
Really?
Rich. Yeah.
All right.
So he's the main actor for Firewatch, which is cool. Like, if you've been a fan, like I like Watchmen, Mad Men, so Watchmen, Mad Men, and I thought Harry Crane in that is the guy that I was sort of identified with in a weird way. So having him as the voice of Henry throughout the game is quite weird at first. It took me out a little bit. I was like, this guy from Mad Men, but then eventually you get used to it. But yeah, so that's it. Firewatch for me. Go and get it.
Cool. All right, cool. And I just noticed that the gameplay takes around 5 to 6 hours. So it's a good one, especially if you're trying to get your kids more invested in longer games. It's a good introductory one that isn't like 20 hours or anything like that.
Yep.
So they can kind of feel like they're getting that completion, that dopamine hit from completing the game.
You can complete it in like, if you rush through it, in brackets.
Yeah.
It took me a bit longer than that, because I really enjoyed walking around the park and trying to get as many clues and stuff like that. So it's I think I took my time with it, because I actually enjoyed it so much. I didn't want it to be over. So, but yeah, it's a good introduction. It's a good introduction for your kids.
So I want to get Little Big Planet, because it was definitely a game that, this was back when Aiden was way younger. It's a game that felt like it was at his age level. It felt like it was a co-op player game, and it had kind of like interesting elements to it, right? And for anybody who hasn't played Little Big Planet, it's basically a game about this creature called Sackboy. And he goes through this planet where there's all these kind of like elements that look like almost like crafts. It looked like the whole planet was built with like cardboard and like fabric and glue, and just like you almost feel like there's like silly putty in the back just holding everything together. But it also then means that you end up manipulating what's around you to basically get through the various puzzles in the game. So for kids that have never done a platformer game, that's a great intro to platforming, right? Because some of the platforms just get ridiculously complicated, like Cuphead and stuff like that. But this one is actually one that's very doable, and you can play with them. So there's like challenges you take on together, and then you absolutely need 2 players to solve the challenge. So it ends up creating a nice situation for you to play it like a 2-player mode. And that was my big thing, right? I wanted to have a 2-player mode game that I could play with Aiden, so we could spend time together, hang out, have something to talk about. And that's exactly what Little Big Planet did. Like, we across like various missions, and then we would finish them and then come back and play the game again. And it was always progressing, and it was on itself. and it never stopped being clever in the interactions the game had. So I just think, generally, as we'll see it, they'll go like at our middle schoolers, right? Like we've got preteens. They'll be like, oh, that's like a kid's game. From a gameplay perspective, it is awesome. It's like super good, can be played at any level. It'll entertain adults as well as kids, as well as like very entry level gamers. So have only great things to say about the game. And there's, I think, 4 different versions of Little Big Planet. It is an exclusive to PlayStation.
I think I love the that game in particular because of its creativity. I think the fact that you could customize your Sackboy into whatever you wanted to. Like you go through the levels and unlock different, maybe a hat or a T-shirt or whatever it is. Stickers also, that used to be the big thing. That was quite cool. And I think they also, I think they encouraged you to share your creations. Also, I think that's when the PlayStation 3 was out, and they were like trying to get people to use the share button on the controller. So that was really cool. I remember, spending a bit of time trying to make my character look cool.
Yeah.
So it's a great game. It's a great pick, I think.
And it's a great example of like where you don't have to pay money to get your character to look good or to pick up these extra stuff. Like, and the more moments of excitement, but they're not tied like, and go buy this, or like, oh, I have this, you don't, right? It's just, it just happens in the natural flow of play. You just get rewarded. And that is the opposite of the slot machine. It's like play and just like out of the blue, like magical stuff's going to happen. And as opposed to like play with an expectation that you will gain status, right? It gives you the surprise rather than expectation earlier. And I really like that difference. So
you're right.
Yeah. So moving on to next bit. What you got, Tom?
So that's a game well, my next recommendation is a game I picked up during the quarantine. Not quarantine, sorry, the lockdown. Quarantine is something completely different. That game is Deliver Us the Moon, which is something I came across completely randomly. So if there's something you need to know about me is I love the moon. Like I love stargazing when if you can, it's not something you can do easily in London because of the lights everywhere. It's such a massive city. But in the summer, you can sort of, get a fair share of stars out there. You can see some good stuff. So I love the moon. I have this weird passion and infatuation with the moon over the years. So when I saw there was this game that allowed you to get up there and trying to solve a mystery of what happened to people that lived on there, I was like, yep, sign me up. So saying that, it's not a 2 players game, it's not a co-op game, but it's something that is definitely story driven. It's more of a sci-fi thriller sort of game, but it's not scary at all. There's nothing that is going to jump out the screen and scare you to death. There's just no jump scares. It's very well paced and balanced again. So the story is basically the planet Earth is so it's got an element to it of teaching kids about taking care of your planet. So there's a bit of let's take care of planet Earth sort of thing vibe to
that climate change is an actual thing.
Climate change is a thing, yes. So it's I think something along the line of planet Earth resources are gone, and the only way we can get power and electricity to the Earth is to go up to the moon and mine the moon and then send back through these massive long beams. You send the energy back to Earth, so you can have this allegedly endless power coming from the moon. It's like there's never ending power. It's like kind of like wind, wind power. But then something happens and you have to go up to the moon to see why we're not receiving any more of that energy and see what happened to the people that were in those bases. And then you have to go through those steps and trying to see what happened and maybe fix those bases and get things back up and running. So again, it's not the longest game. I'm almost done with it after maybe about 10 hours, maybe less than 10 hours. But it's a great game for your kids if you want them to learn about again, climate change and energy and being sustainable and those sort of themes, overarching themes throughout the game. it's I don't know if there's anything else to mention about it, but I think it was a
Yeah.
pretty cool story driven um, game that definitely is also cheap. I know
That
parents'
helps.
money, it helps.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's for us it's about £15. So I think it's about the same in dollars. Should be between 15 and
50,
$20.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. So it's not something that will ruin you, and there's not any DLC for it. There's no crazy things to purchase, so there's not
Okay.
going to be any of that business.
Yeah. And how does it rank in the violence scale? So
Oh,
for any
this
parents out there
so
wondering.
the only violence you'll get is maybe going through the story and finding out what happened to the people there.
Yeah.
Again, there's a few deaths, but it's not portrayed as a violent thing. It's more you trying to um, investigate what happened to them. So the theme of death is present throughout the game, but there's no visual representation of that. You'll see, so they have these visuals of when you're trying to see and understand what happened previously. You go to those computers. One of you or the characters you play with is this tiny little flying ball computer thing robot that follows you around, and that robot gets you through and open a bunch of doors maybe that are locked, and you can get to other parts of the base with it, but also gets you to play recordings of the security camera system, so you see what happens. So it's like these 3D animated um, bodies and stuff that are going on. So you don't see any faces. You just see like those. Remember those very old school 80s 3D animations like those.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
So it's like that. So you see what happened to the guys before, but you don't see any body parts being blown up. That's something you worry about. There's none of that. Obviously, it would be theme of death, but no blood. Put it that way.
Nice, dude. Good work. I liked your recommendations, man. It seem to be like games that have like different pace to what a lot of the kids will be used, but still have enough of a story to keep them drawn in. Awesome. So on that note, like my next pick is, and this will be no surprise, this was Game of the Year. It came out. It's been played endlessly by a ton of people, and it's a true testament to the actual game, which is the Spider-Man game on PS4. So this is the incarnation before Miles Morales game that just came out. So this one came out a few years ago, and it is just an absolutely lovely game. It's the best I can play it. It feels like you're playing the movie, but at the same time, it's just weird to feel like it's playing like a movie. You almost want to sit there and watch it, but also the gameplay is so endlessly satisfying, if nothing else, for just like the slinging webs and like swinging through the city. You do that and have a ball for like an hour, like easily. It's just so satisfying. But the missions are exciting. The actual plot is super cool. It can get tough at times, and at least for us. And we definitely needed some YouTube tutorial support to get through it. This is not a two-player, but what we do is like we'll just in typical like way you do it when you were a kid, you would invite a friend over and you just take turns going on missions, right? And one person is first mission, the person second. So that's what we'll do. We'll take turns going back and forth on missions. And yeah, this is one that actually I need to carve out time to play more with Aiden. We've kind of fell off the bandwagon with it a bit, and we want to get back on it because this is one of the games that I was really excited about. He loved. We're both like super into. And then we just got busy with life and other stuff and haven't come back to it. But it's a super fun game. Absolutely love it. It does have violence. I don't think it's like as gratuitous as some other games. Like it's definitely not in like Call of Duty sort of level. But it does have some violence for the parents that are concerned out there. But it's no more violence than you would see at a Marvel movie. So if your kid is happy with PG-13, this is a perfectly PG-13 game. Super fun, man.
It's one of those games. It's funny because when we got the PS5 last week, the first thing that Emily asked me to do was, "Oh, can I play Spider-Man?" It's and it's a long game as well. It's not something you'll finish in 10 hours. There's lots to do in there. But I want to go back to maybe a little bit of the violence. I think it's very important. Yeah, you understand that if you're comfortable with things you've seen even in the Spider-Man movies, I feel like
Yeah.
it's the same sort of level. You know, it's a
Correct.
big brawl, and you're gonna have
Yeah.
waves of enemies coming at you.
Yes.
Um, and again, it's not I think I want to sort of um, stick to the point that you made. That it's not the easiest of games. So for your
Yes.
kids, especially when they're 10, 11, if you want to introduce them to a superhero game, it's a great introduction to the superhero worlds and superhero
Yeah.
themed games.
Yes.
But you definitely need to give them a hand at times. Those missions when you gotta infiltrate those towers, those bases, and you again have waves of enemies coming at you. These will need a maybe more expert and experienced pair of hands
Yeah.
on those controllers, because it's they can be a handful to get through. I
Yep.
struggled and died a couple times, but yeah.
Oh, we've
Yes.
died a ton of times.
Yeah, you don't. And again, I can piggyback on that with Miles Morales, which is on PS5, which again, it's literally this. It's almost copy and paste to an extent to the Spider-Man that came out on PS4, but graphics are obviously slightly better, and there's no loading time between. If you go through the map, you won't notice anything that is loading at times. If you go between underground and overground, there's no waiting for the game to load. It'll be like instantly there, so it's quite cool.
Oh, nice.
But again, it's the same game, copy and paste, but with Miles Morales in it. So can't go wrong with that. If you got a PS5, also jump on that.
Well, I did hear that one of the things that they updated in Miles Morales is that the actual map of the city apparently got more realistic. Like it was always a pretty realistic map, but like you could people directions to an actual destination in New York by following the game. Like it was like that spot on apparently.
It's more detailed. I think they've put a lot more streets and buildings in there. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. All right, yeah,
Cool.
no, so that's another one. It's like as kiddos that want a challenge that are actually really good at Fortnite, right? This could be a good one to step up to the challenge, right? To like really take on a tough game. So what's your next pick, sir?
I've got a total PlayStation exclusive, which is Astrobot. So Astrobot is I think Astrobot Rescue Mission is the complete name. It's a game that came out on PS4 a couple of years ago, which is you play as Astro the robot, says so in the title, and it's just a straight up platformer. It's extremely cute. It's kind of an easy game. It's not the hardest to complete. Where I'd say it's great is that it's an awesome introduction to the world of VR. So virtual reality.
Oh,
Astrobot.
Interesting.
So literally that's the first game that Emily tried with a VR headset on, and it's such a great game to get yourself to familiarize yourself with a VR headset, because it's you won't get motion sickness, you won't get any of the weird after effect you could get by playing any VR games, and again, extremely kids friendly. It's there's a lot of nods to the world of PlayStation also, and it's even more so now in the PlayStation 5 version, where I think it's Astro's Playroom, which is not a VR game. I think that's just a straight up platform game. And Astro's Playroom is more of a technical demo for the PlayStation 5, with the new controllers and all stuff like that.
Yep.
This is more of a technical demo for the VR headsets on PlayStation 4.
Nice, dude. And what is it? What do you think it is about it that doesn't give you like the motion sickness and stuff? Is it just like the gameplay's a little more considered, or is it just the increase of frame rate, or like what?
No, I don't think it's anything to do with technical reasons. I think it's more like you said. It's so slow in terms of pacing. Like you're going through a platformer, so there's no sudden head turns to the left or to the right. There's no sudden motions. It's like there's a bunch of games where you're literally like riding you're in a car. So that obviously that would be probably the worst thing you can do wearing a VR headset, is being in a car ride, and like you gotta look up and down, and you see somebody coming up to the right of you and shooting at you, and you've got to duck and stuff like that. Those motions are the ones that will kill you, literally. but this one is it's slightly more relaxed. You know, I always compare it as having a godlike view to the game, where you like the little astrobot is looking at you and he's waiting for your instructions to move up and down and you know right and left and jump from that platform to that platform. So it's like he's breaking the fourth wall. Also, is looking. There's an interaction between you and the robot. He knows you're there, looking, watching him, and he's also talking to you during the game. That's pretty cool.
Nice.
So it's extremely simple game. Like this is almost not a challenge to finish it, but it's what it does. It does it extremely well.
So for my final pick, I've got Horizon Zero Dawn.
Nice.
And this is definitely a pick more for like the kind of middle schoolers going into high school, or in the UK going into secondary,
Yep.
year 7, 8, 9, 9s, 10s.
Yep.
I don't know where it ends, but anyways, Horizon Zero Dawn. I think to me it's the perfect answer to Zelda Breath of the Wild from PlayStation to a certain degree.
Sure. Yeah.
Because I feel like it's like the type of game, even though I mean it came out before Breath of the Wild, but the way they updated it, and then the kind of the version that came out PS4, and there's a version that coming out for PS5, right? It's just the type of game where wandering and doing the side missions sometimes is the most exciting thing, because just wandering through the landscape is just so awesome, the same way that like Zelda does it. And just taking on the side missions are just like, there's so many of them, they're like infinitely satisfying. But the main storyline is really good. There's a lot of like really emotional beats in the game. The game itself, once again, I feel somewhat plays like a movie, not in the same specific way as Spider-Man, but in a way that has like a cinematic effect.
Yes.
Like your world isn't small. You're not inside like a platformer where you're like encapsulated in an area. Like the world just feels big and lived in and thought out. And it's a great example of world building. But probably the coolest thing that hooks the kids is when you get into the game and you start to kind of create weapons, start to scavenge for weapons and create your weapons and so on and so forth. That's kind of the first time when I saw in Horizon Zero Dawn, like the dinosaurs, I was like, wow, it felt like Jurassic Park. And that's how highly I think of this game. It's like, it really is one of kind of the favorite ones that we're working on. And I can't recommend enough. Yes, there is violence. Yes, it is extremely hard. I think Tom can attest to this. So what was your experience playing it?
Oh, dude, it's a great game visually. I've put in so many hours into that game, and I don't know. I don't think I'm halfway through it yet. And it's. Have you finished the game? Have you
No,
gone anywhere?
not even close. Oh no, we're like a quarter, if at best.
I don't know anyone who has finished that game. It's just weird.
Yeah.
But saying that, it's great to have such a badass female character in the game.
Yes.
She's so cool.
Yes.
But I really want. The thing is, I feel a bit bad about this game because I really wanna know more about her backstory. I really wanna dig into it, and I've tried to finish it literally a couple of weeks ago before I got rid of my PS4. I was like, I need to finish this game before I transition to the next console. And I could not get back into it for some reason. So I think the controls are a bit heavy. I think the characters move slowly and stuff. So when you go from Spider-Man to that, it's a bit of a change of pace. But saying that, it's one of the greatest game on PlayStation 4. Though. It's up there in the top 5 of the best games, any categories you can think of. I don't know, man. It's just I want to finish it. And it's an experience in itself. It's something that has to be played.
There you go. So yeah, highly recommend it to everyone. Awesome game, and actually it sets up the big question of like, would you rather your kids endlessly play a 15-minute loop or play a game that they're unlikely to finish, right? And both things can be frustrating, but I as a parent, I err on the side of like, give them something that they won't be able to finish, because it creates like a drive and a need to like go figure it out, rather than like the endless need like the gratification coming over and over every 15 minutes, it gives them something to strive for. It gives them something to like battle against. And we're all like sat here as parents that will be able to buy our kids video games. So already they've got a leg up. This is a way to show them like adversity and challenge, right? Like when something's that hard, you got to find it somewhere. Because sometimes it just won't show up in life in the same ways, because we've been fortunate enough to be able to give our kids a good life, man. So you got to find some places to do it.
Yeah, you can find.
Shall we jump into your last pick?
Yeah, sure.
Sorry.
What is no, that's okay. My last pick is the Uncharted series, which is again completely exclusive to the PlayStation. So the funny thing with Uncharted is that it's a great story. There's a bunch of games that came out. You know, it's how many? It's 1, 2, 3 that came out on the PlayStation 3. There's one on the PS Vita, and then there's 2 on the PlayStation 4. So it's about 6 games in total. But it's a funny game, that one, because you look at it and you think, okay, that could be great for your kids if 10 years old and stuff like that. But the main character, Drake, is kind of a funny one, because he's this very charismatic guy, and it's very funny, and it's very great to play. Like it's like the story, the world that is set in is really, really cool. Yeah. But he's like the friendliest mass murderer you can find out there, because he's like going through freaking levels of like downing everyone. Like, and he's like turn around and cracks a joke, and you're like, that's funny. But I just killed 25 guys just to get here. But at least he's cool. So this is where I think if you're a parent and you're like, okay, if you're thinking of getting Uncharted, you'll be. That's what my warning would be. It's like it's a great adventure game. I think it's loosely based on the Indiana Jones world. I think you can say that safely say that. But yeah, and it's got bags of charisma. But be very aware, very mindful that you're gonna have to go through a lot of enemies. Shoot them, throw grenades at them, push them off cliffs and stuff like that. So it looks kids friendly, but beware. There's a lot of dead bodies at the end of it.
Fair enough. It's one of those games where, like, once again, it's like everybody has different tolerances for violence. And I've had a lot of chats about this with friends of mine about like, hey, like this isn't what's going to make my kid a violent kid. So we're very happy for them to like, whether it be play or watch, whatever it may be. And so, yeah, if you're a little bit more feel more comfortable with it, go for it. If not, definitely probably want to stay away from it if you've got like on the younger side and very impressionable. And either one is fine. Like we're trying to give picks for everything, but yeah, this one is a big disclaimer in front of it.
Yeah, big disclaimer. It's that said, it's probably, I would say, top 3 best games on PlayStation 4. I'm hoping they'll get a new one out for the PS5. I don't know if that's in there.
Nice.
In there somewhere.
Cool. All right. So that rounds out all our PlayStation picks. We'll be back with some Xbox picks to talk about those. So stay tuned. Once again, thank you to Tom for all the hard work and editing and the mad Instagram game he's pulling right now with all the posts. They're looking great for catching up with the nerds. I appreciate it.
Yep. That's all right. Thank you for joining into the podcast, and we'll see you, or you'll hear from us in the next one, I guess, about the Xbox.
Have a good one. Stay nerdy or catch up with nerdiness, guys. Take care.